On the phone, we have Pro Football Hall of Famer and former St. Louis Cardinal Roger Wehrli. How you doing, Roger?
Doing real well, thank you.
I see that you started high school at age 13. You were like a Doogie Howser type.
Actually, both my folks were teachers, and so I guess they didn't want to pay for a babysitter, so I actually started school when I was 5 instead of 6.
It didn't hold you back, apparently, though.
No. I was always young for my class and all the way through, and really I remember going out for football my freshman year, and went in to get weighed and everything, and I was 5'2", 112 pounds. So so I was pretty small for freshman football in high school, but eventually grew into it.
Did
So
Dan
they were going to put you at offense or defensive tackle with that sort of massive frame, right?
I'm sorry, what?
They were going to put you either on the offense or defensive line with a massive frame like that, right?
No, I was always somewhere around the ball.
Did Dan Devine personally recruit you to Missouri, or did he have his assistants recruit you?
No, it was assistants. The Coach Clay Cooper, who was the defensive back coach, I think they looked at me from the start as the defensive back at Missouri, and then my sophomore year they decided to use me on the punt returns. So played cornerback and some safety in college, and then all 3 years of my college career I returned the punts at Mizzou. So back then you didn't play as a freshman; you could only play on the freshman team. They didn't allow freshmen to play on the varsity back then, and so we only had 3 years of varsity college.
I went to Missouri, and I'm old enough to remember a number 23 before you, a guy by the name of Johnny Rowland.
Right, yeah. Johnny had, in fact, Johnny was a senior when I was a freshman, and they gave me the same number that he had my sophomore year, and I was very thrilled with that because he had had such a great career at Missouri. Then I was drafted by the Cardinals, and obviously would have liked to have 23, but Johnny was already on the Cardinals, and he had 23, so they gave me, I guess, the next number down, which was 22. So I had to change numbers when I went into the pros.
What was Dan Devine like? My impression of him is he was almost obsessive compulsive in having things done his way. And it had to be done at a precise time.
I think that's probably true. I think his degree was in psychology. He was very exacting. He was the two best coaches that I think I ever had. He on my college year, and then Coach Coryell when I was with the Cardinals, and they couldn't have been more different. Dan Devine, Dan was like you say, he was more the type of coach that was up on the pedestal, looking down over everything, and let his individual coaches do most of the on the field coaching as far as technique and things like that, and then he would take the team over on Saturday or Friday and start getting us ready for the game, and always had a great mental frame going into every game, no matter who we played. Where Coach Coryell with the Cardinals was just the opposite. He was an on the field, fiery type of coach, and a guy that would get right in your face or be your best friend just all the time, and was very much into more the offensive side of the game. He didn't technique coach much of the defense, but he was an offensive innovator and had his hands on every little bit of the offense that we had in the mid-'70s when he was our coach with the Cardinals.
Was your biggest game in college when you beat Alabama in the Gator Bowl?
I think it was, yeah. I think certainly because we always had great seasons at Missouri, and the most games we lost were 3. But didn't never win the Big 8 conference championship. So we would have had a shot at it, but Kansas beat us the last game of my senior year, and then obviously getting an invitation to the Gator Bowl was a big deal at that point because we wanted to redeem ourselves after that, and to go down there and beat Bear Bryant and Alabama in the Gator Bowl by a pretty good margin was a great way to end my career, and certainly a great thrill and a great thrill for all the players.
At Missouri, did you go up against Mel Gray in practice?
Oh, yeah. Mel came in as a junior college transfer, and the first time I didn't know who he was. I think it was, I guess it was training camp there before my senior year. We were just running patterns one-on-one against each other, the defensive backs against the receivers. And I came up in line against him, and I was bumping running him, and he released to the outside and got about a step on me. And, we went down the field about 40 yards, and he still had a step on me. And I went back to the huddle, and I said, "Who is that guy? I can't even catch him." And one of the other defensive backs told me that who he was, Mel Gray, and he was a junior college transfer and had won the junior college 60-yard dash before he came to Missouri. So obviously after that I remembered who he was. he was a great receiver, and then so I played with him that 1 year at Missouri. Then he played his senior year after I was with the Cardinals, and then the Cardinals drafted him also. So we had Johnny Rowland and myself and Mel all in the Cardinals there for a while.
I know one guy you were faster than, Jim Hart.
Oh yeah, Jim wasn't known for his speed. He was, but I tell you, I've never seen a better passer, pinpoint passer with an arm like he had. He could break open defenses. And once Coryell came to the Cardinals in, I guess, 73, 74 there, he had the offense that he needed when Coryell got there, and Coryell and Hart with the pinpoint passes, quick passes to the backs out of the backfield, and basically that West Coast offense that Coryell brought kind of ahead of his time. And Hart was the perfect quarterback for that, and they had obviously had a great career with the Cardinals, and one of my better friends. He was just back in St. Louis a couple weeks ago. He chairs a tournament here. He lives down in Florida, but was back in St. Louis, so we got a chance to see he and Dan Beardorf, Jackie Smith, Mel Gray, a bunch of the old Cardinals come back and play in that golf tournament. So it was very fun to have a reunion of our old teammates.
Now, when the '69 NFL draft came around, I remember it was the Cardinals' turn, and they were going to take a defensive back, and it was either going to be Roger Wehrli or Jim Marsalis. Did you know that the Cardinals were going to take you?
I really didn't know. No, I hadn't really talked to any of the Cardinals. It's amazing, the way the draft is today. It's on television, and everybody, they have all the tryouts, and all of that, the timings and the weights and the vertical jump and the long jump and all those things that they test the players so extensively on now. I hadn't really even talked to any of the Cardinals, and I'd had letters from different teams, San Francisco, Dallas, a lot of different teams, but none from the Cardinals. As it turned out, apparently one of the Cardinal scouts, I found out later, was in Hawaii at the Hula Bowl, and he was the one that asked me to run the 40-yard dash for him at the Hula Bowl after practice, which I did. And found out a couple years later when he came onto the Cardinal staff. He was a scout at that time. When he came onto the Cardinal staff, he told me that when I ran the 40 for them there, that's when they decided to draft me because I was actually faster than they thought I was going to be. And so they, I guess, thought I could play cornerback. So that was what resulted in me being drafted in the first round by the Cardinals. Yeah, I think Jimmy Marsalis, we played in a couple All-Star games together, and he was drafted, I think, two picks later by the Kansas City Chiefs. So.
Right.
Did you thank the scout for having a quick finger to get you that 4.5 40?
Yeah, I ran. I could run 4.5 on grass. I think the fastest I ever ran was a 4.4 on AstroTurf. But back then, the 40 wasn't. Nobody. You didn't prepare for it like they do now. Like I say, the first time I'd ever run it was when we were out in Hawaii, and I ran that 4.5 on grass. So.
Did you have full pads on and everything, or were you just in regular workout clothes?
No, I had helmet and shoulder pads, but just helmet, shoulder pads, and shorts. Just like we worked out there at the Mecca Hula Bowl.
Because now they don't even have the helmet and pads, and they're just running with like these designer clothes on to make them run faster. Can you imagine what you would have ran now?
I don't know. I probably, like I said, I ran a 4.4. That was probably about what I ran the 40 in. Who knows? Maybe I could have got under that a little bit if you actually trained for it, and do the sprint workouts like they do now and train for the different events that they go in the rookie camps.
Was the transition from college to the pros fairly easy for you?
Well, it's always a tough transition. You're going up against the best players in the world, and the best players on every team are the best players out of college. And in college, it's just not that way. I was really fortunate when I came to the Cardinals to have two guys playing safety here, Larry Wilson and Jerry Stovall, the two Cardinal safeties that were veterans and excellent ball players, obviously. So having them to mentor me a little bit when I first came in, and having Larry there to call the defenses and alert us to what the teams like to do and what their tendencies were was something that I really appreciated and helped me along early in my career for sure. But yeah, it's a tough, it's a big transition no matter what. And I got my jock handed to me a few times in my rookie season, but you just have to go through that and learn from your mistakes and work to get better, and that's what I tried to do all through my rookie year here at St. Louis.
Roger Staubach said that the term shutdown corner originated because of you. He said you were the greatest defensive back he ever played against. How did that make you feel?
Oh, it made me feel great, obviously. I mean, Roger was such a great athlete, and we played against each other in the same division, so we had to play him twice every year. And the decade of the 70s was a big decade for them. Early in the 70s, they went to the Super Bowl a couple times, and then we had in the mid 70s when we hit our stride and won the division a few times during the mid 70s. It was always a challenge to beat Dallas because they had just such a great team, and they were an innovative team. Had a lot of good receivers with Pearson and those guys, and just obviously with Staubach back at quarterback. As a defensive back, it was a nightmare because you knew you had to cover the receiver not only the first 4 or 5 seconds of the play, but if nobody was open, he had the ability to scramble, and then he was just looking for whoever was open, and so you had to chase the guys all over the field. It was a struggle playing against him, and certainly to get those praises from him really meant a lot, and I think probably meant a lot to help me get into the Hall of Fame as the voting went, since he had made those statements about me. Yeah.
One of the games where you and the Cardinals shut down and the Cowboys was 1970 Monday Night Football, when Monday Night Football was a big deal, 38-0. Well, what was that like?
Oh, it was wonderful. I mean, that was the first year of Monday Night Football, and it was the first time we had ever played on Monday Night Football, and I'm sure probably Dallas too. And Don Meredith was in the booth with Howard Cosell, and Dandy Don had just retired from the Cardinals, from the Dallas, and was now in the broadcast booth. So he was obviously very partial to the Dallas Cowboys, and we went down there and played in Dallas on a Monday night, and like you say, just had a great game. I had a couple interceptions and some a couple long knockdowns on passes to Bob Hayes deep down the field, and we just pretty much dominated him. And then I think what happened then though is after that game, Roger Staubach had not played in that game and not got very much playing up until then. He was just back from his service duties, and so I think that game spurred the coach to put him in more during the games, and they started doing some alternating after that, and they went on to be in the Super Bowl that year. That was the last regular season game they lost that year. Ran the table, ended up beating us out for the division title by a game, and then went on and lost to Pittsburgh in the Super Bowl. So I think it was a turning point for them. I think Staubach starting more, and they started winning more after that game.
Who was the toughest guy to cover?
Oh gosh, that's tough to say. I think when I first came in, I look at Charlie Taylor as a guy that was as tough as anybody to cover. He was, and again, a guy that was throughout my career was in our same division, so we had to play him twice with Washington, and so he was a great receiver, had all the moves, and plus he was tough as he came into, he came in as a running back into the league, so he was he was tough, a great blocker, great pattern runner, and could catch anything thrown to him. So he was tough. There were a lot of Bob Hayes with Dallas. You always had to respect his speed. So he was a great receiver. Pearson on the other side down in Dallas was great patterns, great pattern runner, great hands.
Paul Warfield. I don't know if you went against Paul Warfield, but he was another
one.
Well,
yeah. Well, sure. Yeah, we didn't play them. We played them my rookie year, and then that's when the division changed. So we didn't play them that much, but I played a few times during my career. Obviously, a wonderful pattern runner, smooth player, and a great player. The Pittsburgh guys later in my career with Swan and Stallworth, they were tough. So a lot of players. I was, when I got elected into the Hall of Fame, I think there were like 16 receivers or something, and I played against like 11 or 12 of them. I forget it. It was amazing.
Who was your favorite quarterback to intercept? You remember who you had your most against?
Well, I had my most against Spada, even though he was probably the best quarterback I played against, because we had more opportunities against him, and I think he was more stubborn than the rest of them, and kept throwing the ball at me now. But no, I think I had 6 interceptions off of him, and that's the most that I had off any one quarterback.
Those military guys are supposed to be smart.
Yeah, I don't know.
Who gave you the most trouble as a quarterback?
I think maybe seemed like Billy Kilmer, a guy back there, and then Jurgensen too. Although I had some interceptions off Jurgensen, but when I looked there at Billy Kilmer and Jurgensen, and they didn't look like they were really. Didn't look very athletic back there at the quarterback position.
God, they looked like they came out of the stand and somebody put a jersey on them.
Yeah, I know it, and I swear they could fling that ball in there, and many times I thought, how did that guy get the ball in there on me on that play or something? And they would consistently do it, just both somehow. They just were wily veterans and were able to get it done.
One of the guys they say was one of the best quarterbacks of all time you probably saw later in his career, Johnny Unitas. What was he like?
Well, I only played him right at the end of his career. We played him real late, and obviously it wasn't in fact he was just coming in part time when I played against him, so not really a good picture of what he was in his prime, certainly. Obviously he was one of the greatest of all time and could throw the ball anywhere, but when I faced him it wasn't really I think it was like the last year, and then I think he ended up the year out in San Diego, his last year or a couple of years, and I don't even for sure that he was a starter when we played him a couple of times, and I saw him across the field.
In practice, did anybody ever tackle Jackie Smith? Because I remember in games it was virtually impossible. Defenders would have to drive him out of bounds pretty much.
Yeah, he was something else. Obviously, Jackie was a competitor. I mean, even in practice, he hated to get the ball knocked down from him if you were covering or whatever. And obviously, once he caught the ball, he was something to see. I can still remember one of the greatest plays I've ever seen is. We were playing Dallas here in St. Louis in the mid-'70s, and he took a ball right across the middle at about 10 yards and broke 5 tackles, 2 linebackers, and that's a corner and a couple safeties. Broke 5 different tackles and scored on the play. It was just, we were standing on the sidelines and just couldn't believe what we saw when we saw the play. And I think it's one of those highlights that they always show when they're talking about Jackie Smith.
What was your favorite moment in professional football?
Oh gosh, I think other than the day that I got elected into the Hall of Fame, I think one of the best games you mentioned, one of the best feelings was that early in my career, that Monday Night Football game in Dallas when we beat them down there. That was such a great thrill because at that time Monday Night Football was the national pastime and one of the few games that you saw that everybody saw on Monday nights. And then in the mid-'70s, I think when we won the division and had the good teams, the Cardiac Cardinals, and won the division a couple times and made it to the playoffs after falling short those first 5 or 6 years in my career. Those were the most fun times to play with Coryell as our coach. He was such a great coach, a great offensive innovator, and a great coach to play for. The players just loved him, and so we had a lot of fun there in the mid-'70s playing football here in St. Louis, and obviously had the town behind us, and was just the most fun I think I ever had playing football.
In 1978, legendary coach Bud Wilkinson, who had unbelievable success on the college level at Oklahoma, comes in. He'd been an analyst on TV. He has his one season, and then I guess ownership wanted a former Missouri quarterback, Steve Bizarkowitz, to start over Jim Hart. And that was the end of the Bud Wilkinson experiment. What was that like?
Well, it was a tough time here in St. Louis because it came. That's the reason that Coryell left, the head coach during the mid-'70s. We had such a great team, and then, like you say, we drafted Bizarkowitz, and Coryell wanted a big defensive player. Instead, we drafted a quarterback when we didn't need one because we had Jim Hart, and Coryell just basically blew up and went to the press and ended up getting himself fired. So that's when we hired that Bud Wilkinson, and he came in, and like I say, it was a tough situation for him to come into because the players loved Coryell, and we had winning seasons, and then obviously we hadn't really drafted the people that we needed, and so Bud came in, and it was a tough situation for him to come into. He was a great individual, a great man, a great motivator. He coached more, as we talked about earlier, the two best coaches that I played under, Devine and Coryell. He was more the Devine type of coach. He left the nuts and bolts a little bit to the assistant coaches, and he came in and was more of a motivator. And some of the stories that he told about his experiences were just kept you on the edge of your seats as a player, because he was he was so well respected in the sport, and so respected for the things that he had done, not only in football but outside of football. And so I don't know, it was kind of an odd time. It was a thrill to have him, interact with him, because he was a kind of a legend at the time, and still the football situations were not that good here in St. Louis. We didn't win that many games when he was here, and he was only here a year and a half, so it was kind of a tough time also. We weren't able to continue the good times that we had under Coryell, and like I say, he came in under very tough situations because a very popular coach had been fired.
What was it like when you went into the Hall of Fame?
Oh gosh, just basically a dream come true. I had been out of football for a good number of years, and so probably, in my mind, I had been on that final 15. They voted down, or they put I think 100 people on the ballot, and then they voted down to 50, then down to 25, and then down to that final 15 that they actually did the voting on. And so I had made those other lists numerous times, but had been down to the final 15 one other time. So I knew it was kind of out there that there's a possibility that I could be voted in, but I think in my mind I had pretty much made up my mind that it probably passed me by, and I probably wouldn't make the Hall of Fame unless I made it as a senior, legends category. But then, then I made that in 2007. I made the final 15, and then, you're on edge again. And when I got the call, it was just an amazing time. I was so happy to be included in that group of players that I played against and played with all those years. And, it's been just a thrill every year to go back and be a part of that and be a part of everything that being in the Hall of Fame means.
Well, I think the deciding factor was that you were such a good holder on place kicks.
Yeah.
And in your last season, you scored a touchdown on a fake field goal. How did that touchdown compare to your interception returns for TDs?
Well, I think it was very satisfying because it was actually on the last home game that I played. I had already announced my retirement. When I first came to the Cardinals, Jim Bakken was the place kicker, and Larry Wilson was his holder. And so then my fourth year, after Larry retired, I started holding on field goals for Bakken, and then the other kickers that we had throughout my career. But I'd already announced my retirement, that I was going to retire at the end of the season, right before our last home game. And so they had kind of a ceremony out there before the game and all of that. And then obviously we were playing the New York Giants and needed to win the game to make the playoffs. That was the strike-shortened season. So it was a very important touchdown that put us ahead, and And we had seen in the films that there's an opportunity for a fake field goal if they lined up in a certain way, because they really like to rush the kicker. And I think it blocked several kicks during the year. So, the coach put the play on, and if the alignment was right, and it was, so we tried it, and I obviously got into the end zone, which was, like I say, a big